Hold on, I'm waiting for us to go live.
Hi, Amita.
Okay, Raymond, you're good.
All righty. So we are reconvened to open session at 7:26. The board provided direction to the chairperson is the action taken in closed session. So that leads us to flag salute. Dr. Amy Smith, you did such a great job last time. Would you mind doing it again?
Love to.
Pretty please. All righty.
All right, ready, begin.
I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of the
of
United
the
States
United
of
States of
America,
America,
and to the
and
republic
to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Public comment, oral communications on non-agenda items. The public, including public attending a teleconference location, are invited to address the board regarding items not listed on the agenda. No individual presentation shall be for more than 3 minutes, and the total time for this purpose shall not exceed 15 minutes. Ordinarily, board members will not respond to presentations and no action can be taken. However, the board may give direction to staff following a presentation. Please turn in the request to address the OPA Board of Directors form and submit it in order to address the Oxford Preparatory Academy Board of Directors. Dr. Amy Kay, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not have any comment cards.
Okay, so that leads us to items for consent. Item A is to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of the OPA Board of Directors on March 25th, 2021. The special meeting of OPA Board of Directors on March 17th, 2021, the special meeting of the OPA Board of Directors on March 18th, 2021, and the special meeting of the OPA Board of Directors on March 22nd, 2021. Notice that's 2021.
Yep, there's a typo.
See what I did there? Craftily. Okay. Those are items for consent. We have B is some personnel reports, promotions and changes. I don't need to read those entirely. Right, okay. So may I have a motion to approve the items for consent?
Make a motion to approve the items for consent.
Thank you, Paul. And may I have a second, please?
Yeah.
Who made that fancy sound? I don't know. May I have a second, pretty please?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, and then I guess we do roll call. Is that right? Yes. So Danelli,
Present.
aye. Did you say aye?
Present, yes.
No, aye. You're
Aye.
sorry. It's a roll call vote. Sorry. Paul,
Aye.
Amy Smith,
Aye.
Delight Travis. Oh, we surprised her. Delight Travis is taking a little break. Director Jackson says aye. And we'll leave Director Travis in absentia. So that's 4-0 to 1 in absentia. Okay. We good, Amy? Dr. Amy Kay? We'll leave.
Yeah, you guys are fine. That's
item
good.
7. Item 7, director reports. Paul, would you like to say anything about?
Yeah, I said this before the open session. I personally have experienced how smoothly the hybrid pickup and drop off has been this week. So congratulations to the staff. You guys are doing a great job. So keep up the good work. I've started hearing news that some of our neighboring school districts are coming back to full-time instruction. So I would request the staff to do an assessment to see what, if anything, we need to change for our roadmap to the until the rest of the academic year. I don't know. I've just heard emails here and there from friends. I don't have any other evidence. So if you guys can just look into that to see if there's any adjustments we need to make to our hybrid and virtual, I would appreciate it. But other than that, great job. Thank you again.
Awesome. Ms. Delight, are you back? How about Ms. Dinelli?
Present. Here. Aye.
This is director reports. You get to talk about how awesome it is to be a director and fun things like that.
I have no comments currently.
Okay. Amy Smith?
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay. All I would say is that OPA is a buzz. Lots and lots of activities, lots of new things, lots of more old things, lots of fun things, and I love it. And it's great. And you guys are doing an awesome job rolling with the punches and the way things happen and curveballs that come. I love it. It makes me proud. So thank you for that. Okay, Delight, last chance. All righty. Discussion items. Item A is
Actually, I have my report.
Executive Director report. Oh my gosh. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. So my comments usually demonstrate how OPA provides an exceptional learning experience for our students. And so I just wanted to underscore the number of enrollment applications for our lottery. There were, only about 1,500, but Dr. Kernan will talk about that in a bit. She'll also talk about summer school and tremendous faculty interest in participating to ensure our students are prepared in the fall. And we also wanted to underscore the ever increasing requirements and opportunities for high quality professional development and resources for all staff, board members, and families. Another way that OPA provides an exceptional experience, again, is the strategic thinking and planning by our board and our staff to align program initiatives and resources with measurable student outcomes. More of that to come, especially in committee work. We're exceptional in that we provide opportunities for our community to have a real voice in matters that concern all students. And also, what's been very exceptional has been the tremendous care our families and our honor societies have provided to our staff and our students this always, but particularly this past year. This month, you have pampered us daily and weekly, and our staff and administrators greatly appreciated and needed that. And again, it's a privilege to work with all of you each day. A big thank you. And that ends my report.
Okie dokie. And a fine report it was. Discussion items. Item A, methods to optimize communication relating to challenges, goals, and outcomes at Oxford Preparatory Academy. Would we like to have Ms. Dinelli kind of lead us into this? Or
Yes.
somebody else? Okay.
Do we need to have an approval of the item for discussion?
We approved of this agenda and earlier on in the meeting.
All right, so I think there's probably some challenges and opportunities for improvement around our communication expectations for the meetings. And since we can't talk about this stuff without it being agendized, I just wanted to make sure that we have this opportunity to talk about, we need to set expectations. We'd like to see what we'd like to discuss what we want to see going forward. And I don't really know what our group is thinking, but I just want to have this opportunity to talk about it because we can't talk about it without it being agendized, and we can't talk about it in a closed session. So again, this is just an opportunity for us to talk about what we want to see. And I don't know if there's any challenges. I think there's some opportunities from my point of view, but I'd like to hear what everyone else thinks as well.
So Denali, I thank you for putting this on the agenda. I appreciate that. And for everybody else that's participating in this, one of the really awkward things about being on a board is there's stuff we just can't talk about unless we get it on an agenda. And it, like it is here, is the time we can speak openly about, these things. And I don't know that we're going to answer every question related to communication at this meeting, just to set, that expectation, but I feel like there probably ought to be some follow-up stuff. And I don't know what all the options are available to us, but I would ask, Dr. Amy Kay and Jill and David to give us some suggestions about that, because I have questions like this. Parents email the board, and sometimes staff members email the board. And I think, need to be clear about what the expectation is when you email the board, that, Denelli is 1 of 5, Paul's 1 of 5, Dr. Amy's 1 of 5, Raymond's 1 of 5. And so, what should a parent expect when they email the board? And what should a staff member expect when they email the board? And, those kinds of things that we should ask and answer those questions so that everybody understands what the expectation is. Another thing would be, a question that I have would be like an agenda. I know there's laws that say we have to post the agenda this many days before, or this many hours before, and that kind of thing. But I also feel like it would be, and I've asked around a little bit, and other charter schools would include the agenda in like an emailing, right? So you don't have to go to the board, the website of the school necessarily to get the agenda, although that's where the law requires it. And obviously we have to, meet the expectations there, but maybe we take the extra step of sending out a board meeting agenda to everybody in an email before the board meeting, and maybe even call out some particular things in there, that say, especially if they're really impactful to OPA families. So if, by way of example, if we're going to make a decision about going to full virtual, that's a big decision, and that's going to affect a lot of people. And so, maybe we go extra steps to make sure that we advertise that to OPA families, so that anybody who's affected, we invite them to the dialogue, we invite them to the conversation. And so, that's a communication change, I feel like. And so how do we, is that something that we as a board are interested in? And, what are your thoughts about any of those things and others, Dr. Amy Smith?
Well, I guess I'd like to thank Denelli for putting this on the agenda for us to talk about. Being new to OPA, I feel like I'm, in some ways, as you're a new person, you're always playing catch up. And so I'm grateful for my fellow board members and for the staff for helping me along. But in my short time with OPA, I do feel like there are some things that maybe we could do to help us as board members make more informed decisions. Things like getting information, a little more in advance to the times we're going to speak about making certain decisions, and taking the approach of the information that we need to receive needs to be in the context of, how does someone look at something that's not living and breathing this every day, and what are the basics they need to know to make an informed decision? Because I feel sometimes I'm lacking some of the information I feel like would be useful or helpful to provide me the context I need. But in general, I do really feel like everyone is striving to get us what we need, and to have things be transparent, especially as we meet, in front of parents and staff and the rest of the public. So I certainly appreciate that. I just think there's some tweaks that we could probably make to make it even better, and that we make sure that we're holding one another accountable when we say we want something to be changed or tweaked. That we're making sure that there's follow-up and that those things are happening, so we don't have to, come back and revisit the same topics over and over.
Mm-hmm. Paul, how about you, buddy?
Thanks for the topic again. I look at it as sort of communications between the board, communications between the board and the staff, and then all the other communications that happen between the schools and the different stakeholders. And I would rather not comment on that yet. I assume that as part of strategic planning and as we do all of these board committees, that if there are any adjustments to be made to that, that'll come through. From what I can tell, over the past few months, we've made, or years maybe, we've made significant progress in how we communicate with our parents and so on. So I don't want to necessarily speak to that. For me, a big pain point is we make a lot of big decisions, and as a board, the 5 of us, and we get a lot of input from multiple stakeholders. So I echo Amy's thought that it is helpful for us to get information as early as possible so we can process it. So the time that we have together, we're able to ask the right questions and intelligent questions and so on. What I do, it's a very specific request I have, and maybe Dr. Amy or Jill or David, you can help us, is there's got to be a better way to conform to Brown Act. Then you can never talk to each other, right? There's got to be a better way. I got to imagine that I can't imagine school boards out there not being able to have even some kind of a discussion. And so I want strategies on what people do. And is it really this constraining that I can't even hit a reply all to a parent saying, hey, I've acknowledged, right? So I truly request some sort of, I know, Jill, you had a Brown Act training for us, but I'm more looking for guidance from other board. How do they function? How do they have the discussions that follows the principles of Brown Act, which is that we're not making any decisions in a closed forum, but there has to be a space for us to have discussions that we're not necessarily looking to do it in a closed session out of sight of the public eye, but it just feels like you have to, if you don't agendize this, you can't speak to it. And I understand all the reasons why it is there, but I would like to learn strategies on how we can be more effective as board members, because right now I feel constrained that I can't make these decisions without the benefit of getting everybody's opinion. So I would certainly like that. I think the staff has been tremendously helpful, all 3 of you that I've interacted with, Amy, Jill, and David. You guys have been tremendously helpful in onboarding me, and you guys are really good at informing us about what's happening in the school and what we need to know. And hey, here's a watch out, or here's this and here's that, and all the confidential board reports that we get. So I truly acknowledge that. Thank you for helping onboard me. But I'm not used. I need someone to teach me how to conform to Brown Act, but still be more effective as a board member. So from a communication perspective, that's like a particularly specific ask I have. And any advice anybody has, I'm happy to take it. So thank you.
So Ms. Delight.
I think
Okay. So Janelle, what I've been taking some notes here. This has been a great, thank you for kind of starting this conversation. How do you envision this going forward?
So initially, I just wanted to have the opportunity to talk about it because I didn't know. I can guess that we have some challenges with communication, and we've heard a few of them. So initially, I just wanted to have this conversation to be able to have it. And then secondly, I wanted to have action items that came out of this that we could improve communication based on everybody's input. So Amy has certain things that she needs, and Paul does, and Delight does, and you do, and I do. How do we list it and give it to the staff members that need to have it, or us, and have a due date? Like, we want to have it done by X date, or we want to have another discussion regarding this by X date. That's what I'd like to see. And then I have some things that I would love to see. And I know I have a huge crush on our board and our staff. I think everybody is fantastic. I want to optimize this time. We have so much to do, and there's so much that we need to do, that I want to make sure that we're just making it happen so quickly. So my other one comment, and another thing that I'd like to see is how do we get, I know I've talked to you guys about this before, but I'd really like to see the presentations and things like that for our stakeholders, for them to be able to see it and to read it and have, thoughtful commentary when they have the opportunity to do that. So I'd like to, I know there's rules and I know that there's timelines, but maybe there's a way to make a hybrid so we can just give the stakeholders what they need and allow you guys enough time to, I know things change to the absolute last minute. Maybe there's a way you can put it out there and say, these things have changed since the presentation was out there and we can address it. But again, I'd like to see something like that. And I want to see some, so we have these things and there's like a special board meeting. I've noticed in your last comment, Amy Smith, you were saying you were talking about how do we come up with the special board meeting topics and when are they, how are we having it for certain topics and not other topics. So I just kind of want to have our hands around what we need to do and how to do it better.
Is that kind of do you envision that to be maybe, like some training where, maybe we have somebody, Jerry, or, one of our staff members talk about, these are the topics that typically come up in a special meeting, why special meetings are a good tool, and then why are they kind of bothersome and, a bit of a burden to our authorizers. They don't like it. They don't like it when you have them all the time, unnecessarily.
What I'd like to see is all of these items listed and we can say, Jerry needs to handle this, staff can handle this, or we need to come back and revisit these items because we're not clear on what our parameters are. So this education about what we can do for Brown Act and have these discussions, let's figure out how we can make that happen so we don't have to agendize this type of stuff if we don't need to, or if there's a way around it so we can be more, dynamic and quick acting. So we don't have to have these conversations in these long board meetings and we can just figure stuff out and make it happen.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want that mobility.
Well, one of the things I just want to be sure that we point out, and I know this is going to land on everybody right, but Amy and Jill and David, I've seen OPA before have a board secretary and have an entirely additional staff member available to handle presentation creation, board packet creation, all those kinds of things. And so OPA operates in a pretty lean way. Like we don't have a lot of extra people around. And so oftentimes, Amy and Jill and David, they pick up that burden. They pick up those extra things to do. And so I don't know what the plan is if we have some thoughts about maybe having a board secretary again, and they call it a board secretary. It's not for the board members, but it's, a secretary to help, advance the projects that Jill and David and Amy have going on. But I know that that's been very helpful in the past. And I know those people have been hugely productive in developing documents and getting stuff out there. And so maybe that's part of this as well. And David, I don't know that you guys can talk about.
I remember that model. So thanks for bringing that up. I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
So is there an org chart plan for somebody like that? Or is that something that we decided we can live without? Or what are our thoughts on that?
I think that would be included as we're just about ready to work on the budget for the next school year. Coming up really imminently. And, our friends Amita at EdTech, we're just about ready to kick that off with Rosa, Rosa Palladino, our new Fiscal Services Director. So I think that would be something that could be looked at to be included in the next budget.
Okay. And I only bring it up because I've seen it in the past and they're huge. They're creating PowerPoint decks and they're doing all sorts of communication things too, drafting communications to parents and staff. And, so the velocity and the intensity of the communication was definitely up at that time. Jill, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, we've definitely could benefit with an office manager, board secretary. We're doing a lot of those. I mean, frankly, your upper admin is completely doing it on its own, and that's work that we could better be spent doing on our specialized expertise in our our scope of work. So I favor that. It's, again, we have run really lean, and we could really benefit from that.
And I think, I mean, I believe that tell me, board mates, if I go wrong here, but I feel like this isn't a commentary on, hey, somebody's doing bad work or somebody needs to catch up or do whatever. I think what you have here is you have a bunch of super well-intentioned board members who are very high achieving in their own worlds and their own lives. And then they come here and they bring those super high achieving, high performing expectations here too. So I think what I hear is, hey man, let's take our game to the next level. We're already a great game. I don't think anybody's going to challenge us on that, but let's take it to the next level. And Delight, I want to invite you to talk about communication. We've been talking a little bit about that. Paul talked about some of the things that he'd like to see a little bit more of.
I'm so sorry, Raymond. I just joined. I've been having computer issues since we got out of closed session.
Okay.
And what we're talking about board communication right now?
No, we're talking about communication in general. So how are we communicating with parents, or how are we communicating? And of course, board communications came up. I mean, we heard getting information to the board members, as early as possible, and copies of the slide decks available, for stakeholders to review, as well as board members, and, making good decisions depends on access to good information.
Well, I would just add that I think one of the things that if we can do as many things early and often, I think that that's always a good principle with it. And I also think that there needs to be more processes in place. So if people are interested in getting that communication, regardless if it's for the board or whatnot, that there's a good process in place that everybody knows on how to do it, or even to add things to our agenda. I think formalizing a process, especially around that stuff, would make sure that it moves forward correctly.
Okay.
We do have approved and adopted board norms, and they're basic guidelines, but there's a lot of nuance that I hear. And I think we're getting caught up sometimes on things that we know what we can't do, but we don't know we have to push through what we can do. And, to take a look at that as well. But yeah, the other thing that, boards do is, in order to get things out early enough to be able to have that comprehensive understanding, is we have a pretty progressive policy about how late we put out our agendas and accept items. Most boards will say, hey, it all needs to be done within 2 or 3 weeks ahead. And we have to take a look at what we want that kind of process to be, because we're getting caught with, trying to keep as current as possible and get through things at the end of the month, where basically maybe we need to back up our timelines for submission and say, this is the time of the month where we don't submit anymore, and it wouldn't be the week before the agenda is due to come out. So that's what other districts do to provide the kind of information and time and orientation to each agenda item.
Where is that board norms policy? Because I was looking at our policies file and I'm not seeing it. So maybe it's recent.
It's in the board folder, but I can send the link out. It's under board documents, but I will send it out because it's something that you may want to take a look at as a board as well. It was adopted in 2018. It was like October, November, and it does need another look through as we look through everything every couple of years. I'll send out the link,
the only person that's on the board, the only person that was on the board in that time frame was Raymond. So right. I think that's important for us, because even I don't even know about this document, and I came on after Raymond. So I really think that stuff is helpful to reshare out so that we can try to do it. And is there a form? I guess I'm going to ask the question: is there a formal process? You're saying that you accept items late for agenda for the board meetings, but I I would love to see a document that's what's the formal process to get something on the agenda.
It's in there. Usually I send it out when a board member first comes on, but sometimes there's a flood of things that I send. So let me make sure that there's a link, and also I send that to you, and that might be something for discussion at a future board meeting.
And Jill, one of the Delight brought up a great point is we really do have access to an incredible amount of information, and lots of questions have been asked and answered before, but sometimes in the fog of all the things that go on, they're just not front of mind. Is there a way without, is there a way for us to get kind of I want to say an outline, or maybe just a table of contents that says, hey, you know what? The first 30-page document I'm going to send you is a table of contents that lists out all the things that are available to you, and maybe clickable links so that we can readily access them, and because I'm sure Delight's going to look at that thing and say, oh my gosh, I had no idea that we already had a policy on, whatever. So yeah,
Raymond,
let's make a way. Let's make it. Let's make a way to live into it and have easy access and understanding what's there, rather than just have it, just be kind of under the, submerged, so to speak.
Right,
so,
right.
Okay, I understand.
Paul, go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say to Denelli's point. I have a suggestion in terms of sort of driving this action item forward, right? It has to be assigned to somebody, and I know that we have 3 committees. The Academic Outcomes Committee will have their hands full. Strategic Planning Committee hands full. Maybe the Governance Committee can take some of these topics on, and we have staff members there who can help us. And part of that should be, I like this idea that Jill, what Raymond you brought up, and then Jill refined, which is rather than just a board secretary, it's like a upper admin executive assistant who also supports the board. I think we should evaluate the feasibility of that and compare ourselves with other schools. I personally think that's a great idea, because it just frees up space. Like Amy spends half the time trying to do, I got to press record on YouTube, and I got to send out a Zoom invitation and so on. And some of these things if we can outsource to folks who are sort of doing this as part of their job, then these guys can focus on what they have to do, right? This is all extra stuff. So Raymond, if the board members are okay, we both are part of the governance committee. Should we, along with the staff, take on feedback from everybody and kind of lay out the action items and see which ones need to allocate to what? Is that a way to close out this topic? Raymond, are you cool with that?
Yeah, no, it sure is. I think this is a discussion item, so I don't think we can take any specific action on this particular item. But as in the governance committee, if we want to pick that up as a topic and work it through like that, I don't think you're going to have trouble selling, Jill and David and Amy on, bringing an admin support person back in, because Jill and Amy actually changed the oil in the OPA vehicles out in the parking lot. I'm pretty sure but it's crazy the amount of work that they do. And I love that it's really thrifty. It's like, hey man, we got to save money. And that's what this has been all about. And like I said, Paul, we've had a board secretary, for a few years. And it wasn't until, Jill and David came in, Amy came in and said, hey, I think we could live without that for a little while. And I think what I hear you saying is that a little while has probably gone on a long while, and it might be a good time for us to look at,
Agreed.
right sizing.
Yeah.
And then I think we can have a better expectation of getting, more documents faster, better produced, with more questions asked and answered up front, So good. I look forward to that, Paul. That's great. Okay, so
we're not just we're not just a school board, but we're a corporation, and we have the whole corporate side of it too, and all the follow through on that. So again, it's both sides of it. It's pretty intensive and pretty heavy lifting sometimes. It's not hard work, but there's a mass to that, and that goes beyond a regular school board. So thank you for that.
Jill, could you tell us how we should approve that process? What is required for us to say budget it and go higher? Is there some? Would you tell us later, or how would that? I know we can't take an action item here, but We'd love
You
to
can
say,
dir-
okay, what is our game plan?
We need
You
that.
can direct the staff to take a look at the budgeting for that and the staffing for that. I think one of the things that normally happens in most school districts is that the superintendent's secretary is also the board secretary. And so they do play that dual role, and it is a pretty, it works out well, because usually the superintendent or the executive director would be the main conduit to the board. And so having that person's administrative assistant also be the board secretary provides a pretty seamless transition or seamless communication. So I think that if you were to direct us as a staff to look into staffing that position, then that would be the actual, like, that would be the next step. And then we could go and look at job descriptions, budget, and everything that we would need to do. And then we would bring that job description to you at an upcoming board meeting soon for you guys to approve that.
So I'll make that direction, Paul. But if we could get that strategic planning committee, that slacker group together, that would be really helpful too.
I think Delight has a question. She's raised her hand.
Thank you, Paul. I think one other element with all this, when it comes to communication, especially with our stakeholders, is they don't have a clear understanding of the different roles and how we operate as an organization. So, like, when are you supposed to reach out to, the chief academic officer? When are you supposed to reach out to the chancellor? When are you supposed to reach out to the executive director, and so on and so forth? And I honestly believe that even that, when we talk about strong OPA communication, I think that would be very important, so that they fully know who they should contact when, and that would help with a lot of our communication as well.
And I think that could also come, and I think it would be a good idea to have some board training that's more tailored towards just sort of answering your questions, and less of a kind of canned board training on Brown Act, but more a board training where basically you can just ask your questions. Paul, we can talk a little bit about how does a good board work under the restrictions of the Brown Act, and what are some good feedback that they can give as far as making that happen, and also just general board governance strategies. And I think there's several different companies out there that that are run by ex-superintendents and board members that can provide that type of training, where it's more tailored to us as an individual organization. I've been looking into a couple of different companies that I know that do this to try to get that get that going, so that we can have that more tailored training for you guys, and you can ask your questions and really get more specific answers. So if you,
though I think Delight's point was also to the broader stakeholders. So maybe there's somewhere in the website we should say, here's the role of the executive director, here's the role of the CAO, and here are the questions you direct to Jill. I think that's probably an easy win, right? That's something you can easily upload to the website in the next 2 weeks. So that way then parents will know, oh, I'm new to OPA. I mean, who's this executive director, and what is the CAO? How is Amy different from Chancellor Alvarado or Chancellor Bridges, right? So I think that's an easy win. I think that perhaps staff could help with as well.
So are we supposed to direct you for that?
No, I think we can just get that done.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be awesome, because I think it goes back to the roles and responsibilities. To Jill's point, it's really, we're a corporation as well, so we kind of have nuances of a school, a charter school, and a corporation. And so I think it gets very confusing, especially for our stakeholders. And I think the more that they can have that clarity, the more it would help with all of our communication.
And Delight, just so you know, you are very clearly having a party at your house.
I'm so sorry. It's a crazy night over here. So sorry.
Very
I'm leaving
clearly.
myself on mute.
Very clearly having a party. Okay.
I have another question. I'm sorry, Raymond. I just have a question about policies and procedures. Is there a way for and I don't know what's appropriate. If there's a way for parents to know what rules the board has around communicating with them, et cetera, like, if we have a board spokesperson, so I didn't realize that I couldn't respond to emails directly until, and that needed to come from a board chairperson. So is there a way for us to have some kind of documentation that shows parents what the rules are around communication from board members, and with just a little click on a site or something that they can reference so that they understand what the parameters are? Is that possible? Is that something that we can do?
I think of it as maybe some FAQs, some helpful tips, right? Some guidance around what you're saying. Nellie, I understand.
Yeah, I would like to revisit this notion of that board members can communicate with parents unless the board chair. So I don't think that's true, but if that's the case, then I've been breaking it because I've been responding. When parents write to me, I'm not going to be rude and ignore them. So we should probably have a discussion about that. Maybe that's part of the board norms that we need to, as a board, meet to say, what are the norms? Like, how are we going to, because I think what I've been coached is that, I think Raymond, is that you can't respond on behalf of the board. You can respond as an individual saying, hey, acknowledged, we can do it. I mean, I will communicate to the right people, but I can make a statement on behalf of the board is how I've been coached, but maybe this is part of the discussion we need to have.
I think that's also something that could also, I know that you and Raymond are part of the governance committee. I think that those types of board norms, and because some of them are OPA policies versus something that is a legal policy around the Brown Act, and so that the board president or being the one to communicate, I think that's something that we could definitely take up, creating those types of policies or reviewing those types of policies in the governance committee, because that would definitely fall under those types of governance roles that and policies that you have as a board.
Yeah, there's a document that I read that had kind of the norms and stuff out on our board folder, so that's where I had seen that. And after I saw it, then I was, following the rules.
Yeah, so I think that if that's something that the board wants to look more into or possibly, come up with changes for, then I think that would be a great thing to start in the governance committee and then bring out recommendations to the board in general for making changes or tweaking that, because those are OPA policies, not necessarily Brown Act policies that have to be strictly followed. So those are things that we could definitely work on updating or tweaking in that governance committee would be a great place to do that, because that would fall under what their charter talks about them working on.
We better have a standing agenda item for governance committee for the next couple of months then. But Paul, because that's not a law. That's not, where we have to do that. That's one of these things. And I'll remind you that when I first joined the board, we couldn't do YouTube, we couldn't do streaming, we couldn't, it was like, look, either you come to the board meeting or you figure out what happened a couple of days later. And so that was one of the very first initiatives that we took up, was YouTube Landia, and being able to pump this information out into, I would want to wear my PJs and participate in the board. I don't want to have to come to a board meeting. And so there's no reason why Raymond's opinion is that, I don't feel like you shouldn't be able to communicate. And I don't feel like if somebody emails, Danelli or Amy, that you guys shouldn't be able to, respond to them. You're not committing us to something as much as you're acknowledging that, hey man, I hear you. And maybe you have a clarifying question about something, that would help us all learn more about whatever that particular parent might be struggling with or recognizing. And I just want to say too, that lots of the emails that we get are attaboy awesome things, saying, man, this is so cool. This is so awesome. And so I think it's really important that we have open and active lines of communication. So let's pick that up, man. That'd be awesome. So are we about ready to wrap this this first version of communication conversation up? And Danelli, thanks again for pushing hard, making sure this gets on the, because we've got a busy agenda, right? So thanks for making sure we got on here. Okay, so that takes us to strategic planning as a discussion item. It's about time this strategic planning group gets something together here.
So Dr. Karen, would you bring up the deck or should I bring it up?
I gave you permission if you want to do it.
Sure.
If you want to
Okay,
drive it
I can do
yourself,
it.
or else I can. It's up to you.
Whatever is easy. I'm happy to.
Sometimes
pull it
it's
up.
easier if you want to flip through your slides. That way you
No
don't have to keep telling me flip.
No
Flip.
problem. If you trust me,
Flip.
I
on
trust you. I gave
presenting.
you the power.
Oh no, he's going to mute me.
And feel free to mute Raymond anytime you want.
Oh man.
Okay, so thanks everyone. I know we've been talking about this for a while, and I do want to caveat up front that this is purely a straw man proposal. This is by no means that we've decided this. This is a proposal to the board. This is a proposal to all the stakeholders. Because everyone's been busy with the ED interviewing process, we haven't had the chance to engage all the staff members on this. So it's Delight and I who sort of started the work on it. Again, I want to reiterate to the board members that this is, again, a straw man. Anything can be changed. Nothing is set in paper. Nothing is set in stone, right? Everything is sort of, here's a proposal we have, and let's kind of talk through that. So, and I think the intention is that we'll take this feedback and formally kick off sort of the committee meetings with the staff members assigned to us. I think Jill and Amy, both of you guys are assigned to this committee. And then we'll start sort of making progress on this, right? And as I said, we have some proposals on cadence of how often to interact with the board to give a full update to the board. We're initially proposing at least twice a month, but let's kind of talk through that. I only have 2 pages. Ignore the timing for now, because one of the things that we've been debating, Delight and I have been debating, is this timing too aggressive, particularly considering that we have the end of the school year coming. We're going through all this recruitment that we have in terms of staff members, and generally my understanding is springtime is busy for the school, so I completely understand. So for a moment, just ignore the timing aspect of it, but just think about are these the right set of activities and deliverables that we need to have at the end of the strategic planning process, right? And we can adjust the timing a little later. But if you start with sort of what are the big objectives we have for this? So the proposal we have is we should sort of have a very clear articulation of what are our 3 to 5 year goals, right? Very clearly, and how we choose to measure it. Do we choose to measure it in terms of academic outcomes, or we choose to measure it using student experience or preparedness for high school or preparedness for college? All of those things is part of the work we need to. That's why we've articulated metrics to measure success also as a work item. No presupposition of answer right now, right? So that's the first step. Second step then is, and of course, this doesn't have to be sequential, but the second major objective is we got to protect our core. We got to strengthen our core, right? That's basic business analysis is you never go do something new if you don't know if your core is strong. If you haven't protected your home turf, you should never be going hunting for new things. And so we do want to have a current state assessment, and our hypothesis is that there is going to be gaps from where we are to where we want to be. The LCAP and all of those things are going to help us with that. And so we definitely want to have sort of a work stream focused on strengthening our core, right? So current state assessment. And then there is another set of objectives on what are the different growth initiatives that we want to pursue. This would require sort of how are we going to measure the success of how are we going to pick growth initiatives? So that's the evaluation criteria. We also need to have this full set of ideas for growth, right? Whether it's a bigger campus, one more campus, a middle school campus, eventually moving to high school. There's a lot of different growth vectors that we could have, and we've talked about several of these things. We got to sort of bring all of that up with looking through discussions with all the different stakeholders, right? And then, we got to prioritize these initiatives and then make sure that we have the money to do it, the facilities to do it, the capabilities, the staff to do it, and so on. So that's sort of the growth initiatives bucket. And the last one is the implementation plan, which is then, it doesn't matter, all of these are fancy PowerPoint, but what is sort of a timeline? What are the things we need to accomplish, and how are we going to do it? Who's responsible for it, and so on. So that's kind of the the 4 big areas that or objectives, and then our first cut at deliverables for these objectives. So let me pause to see if any of you guys have any comments or questions, corrections, edits, whatever it is.
Paul, the question that I have is about mission and vision. I feel like we're at a point now where we have our plate has been cleared of some things that have, our brains have been consumed with for quite a while. And so I can't think of a more important thing beyond an awesome executive director. I can't think of a more important thing for us to be working on than mission and vision, something that we clearly communicates our intentions and where we're going and helps everybody, line up.
Yeah, agree, Raymond. I think, we were not going in thinking that we have to change the mission and vision. That's why we said if needed to be refined, but certainly we need to revisit that because that's going to be a North Star, right? I mean, that's going to have to be, everything needs to flow from mission, vision, and values, right? I mean, I didn't put values in here, but everything needs to flow from that. And so, and I think you're absolutely right. Before we embark on this potential growth, yes, we need to make sure everyone's clear, everyone's aligned on what we're trying to do. I agree with you.
I really appreciate having that current state assessment where we keeping the core strong, because I think in my opinion, it's really good to make sure that we're doing everything we need to be doing right before we try to replicate that later on or somewhere else. And we need to be able to do it very quickly. So to having that assessment is a great thing. So thank you for that.
Also say thank you for laying out the framework, Paul. I think this looks great. Can you describe a little bit more about the plan throughout this process to gather feedback from critical stakeholders?
Thank you for that beautiful segue. So we worked on a timeline. We worked on of course, I've now shaded it out because we've been busy with getting going through all the ED interviews. As you saw in our consent items, we had 4 board meetings, 3 intermediate board meetings since our February board meeting. So clearly, Jill, appreciate you acknowledging all the time we've spent as a board. So we'll work on the timing, Amy, but what we've done is we've taken a stab at what are the big activities to accomplish these deliverables, right? And there's more details. It's in the board folder. Everyone has access to it, all the stakeholders. We've also taken a stab at which of the committees would sort of run that step of the process, right? Now, again, I want to caveat again that it's not about decisioning. It's about sort of driving. It's about having these discussions. So we're almost imagining that we got to kick it off with a series of focus group meetings, with all of our different stakeholders, which means that we need to have input from the types of discussion you want to have from the strategy committee, from the academic excellence committee, right? All of them have to sort of provide their input on what you want to ask from the focus group, and then we've taken a high level stab at what would be sort of the current state assessment, and here. We'd articulated it's not just about student experience, which is absolutely the 90% of the work we'll be looking at, but we also need to look at our finances. We need to look at, for example, how are we doing on our infrastructure, right? Are we bursting at our seams, right? And so again, we have a high level view that we can refine. And when we have the strategy and development committee, hopefully next week, Amy's already called for a meeting. We'll refine this a little bit more and adjust the timing and then to the board. And then, sort of, and then along the way, we were hoping, this is sort of our wish list, is have time in every regular board meeting. So it's this at least for the next 3 months or so, we need to probably spend a good chunk of time during a regular board meeting, a standing item that says, okay, maybe it's not the word standing item, but an agenda item that says what's happening in strategic planning, right? And this is the time for us to give readouts to the full board, because again, remember, we're all going to be doing it in pieces, right? the Academic Excellence Committee is going to go off and do things 2 board members at a time. The Finance Committee is going to do 2 board members at a time. Governance, strategy, and so we got to make sure that we have enough space for us to all do the report outs and pick up the inferences. But the idea is that between those board meetings, the committee folks will gather the information, translate it into insights, and then present the insights, which then can lead to decisions along the way, right? So I'd imagine that at least we need to have 1 additional board meeting, special board meeting between board meetings with the entire board, with all the stakeholders. I'd love for the entire, whoever's interested in strategic planning, including parents and staff, and everybody, students, everybody, to come and see the sausage making, right? I mean, Brown Act and this is a really great idea because everyone gets to sort of buy into the process. So I think from the board, we are asking meaningful time during regular board meetings, plus an intermediate between 2 board meetings, another board meeting, which is agendized, where we discuss additional readouts as well. And you can see that there's a proposal on when we were thinking about it, but obviously we have to go and refine it. But that's sort of and then we'd written down sort of some next steps. Of course, we need to refine this timeline, particularly align it with when we want to have our new ED on. Jill's going to be with us for a period of time, so she's going to have a lot of input as well. So we'd love to, before she retires, I want to make sure that we capture thoughts from her as well. So I think we need to adjust that, and certainly I think this board is well committed to meeting at least twice a month. Hopefully that'll work. And then there are sort of 2 major work groups that we need to start kicking off, right? And looks like the Academic Excellence Committee has already started meeting. I saw some readouts from that. Great, thank you for that. Here's sort of what we'd at least initially started off as what you would do within the, that's the work stream number 2. And work stream number 1 is this, what Raymond said, this notion of mission, vision, and aspirations, which actually will include current state assessment as well. And we would love to kick off like focus groups. And one suggestion that I was thinking about it is that we're not going to say everyone needs to submit a comment card and you only have 3 minutes. I think, hopefully I won't regret saying this, but we got to allow some open discussion, and we got to allow people to come and not have a big tax of you have to submit your comment cards ahead of time and you're going to be called upon. But I'm sure Amy or Jill, you guys will tell me offline about that. But I think, we need to have at least 3 focus groups. I was thinking 1 sort of with the staff and teachers, because their input is going to be particularly important, because they may be able to tell us about current state and what their vision is. Obviously, we need to have sort of a parents group as well. Clearly, the ED recruitment has shown us that the parents were incredibly interested in OPA and are willing to give time. We need to harness that. And I'm thinking students, if it's appropriate, and if the chancellors or whoever can help us with having focus group with students, I think it'll be fantastic. So that's sort of the game plan. I'm curious to see what people think and what additional feedback you have, and
So I just want to say before we jump into that Paul has been an incredible leader in even pulling these concepts together and everything. I am very excited for him to lead us in this process. I think he's looking at all the right lenses and trying to involve as many people as possible to really embrace our OPA community.
Just want to comment that, again, we did decide on the terminology. We replaced academic excellence with academic outcomes, which I think, so that's the name of our board committee. And
I will change that, Jill. Thank you.
Yeah, and it fits very well with, the strategic thinking and planning and the outcomes that we're expecting. So
Paul, what does that look like in a Brown Act kind of environment? How do we got a lot of ground to cover here. And so what is that? Is that agendized board meetings with the full board? Or is that?
So Raymond, at this point in time, we were thinking twice a month, agendized full board meeting where the readouts and decisions and, prioritizing and picking criteria and approving insights would happen. the focus groups, by no means, I can't imagine that only Delight and I will lead the focus groups, but we have to make sure that only 2 board members go to the focus groups. And I would love for everybody to sort of volunteer, say, okay, I don't know if it's going to be 3, or Amy, you might say, no, we want to have an SV focused one and a SOC focused one, that then it becomes 6 focus groups, 5 board members. But again, it's all a matter of making sure that whoever goes to these are able to capture the insights and then translate that, and then the Delight and I will be responsible for taking everybody's insights, translating that, and then presenting it back to you guys, right? So again, I don't think Delight or I are signing up saying we will do all the focus groups, because I mean, I'm sure we may be able to do it, but I'm sure you guys want to be part of some of these focus groups. So I think that was the intent, is to, again, but we got to do it in a Brown Act compliant way. So we'll do like 2 board members, no more than 2 board members in some of these sessions. But then we will have, I mean, if we need to have 3 board meetings every month, let's plan for that, right? We'll have a better sense of it when we meet next week and kind of, refine that timeline that we put together. Right now, I think the way I laid it out, 2 board meetings would be enough. But we never know. Maybe we'll need to more. But hopefully we'll be able to put it predictably, so you guys can plan it for the next 3 months, saying, yeah, we're going to have an intermediate board meeting 2 weeks after the regular board meeting. So it's in our calendar. We can make it a longer session. We can publish the agenda and all of that stuff, right? So.
Well, and the other thing that we might need to look at is lengthening the time with a new ED coming on, is figuring out with that new ED coming in, just do we need to adjust our timeframes? And so I think that was the things that there's some unknowns that we haven't been able to capture yet, that we really do need to take into account as we map this out.
And there's some other ways that we can accommodate the Brown Act through things like board study sessions, instead of having it being a regular board meeting where we have to do sort of all of these extra pieces. By doing a study session, it's a little bit looser. Like you said, Paul, we can have people have more of a dialogue and have it be the sort of the only agenda item that we have. So maybe it's having a regular board meeting each month and then having a board study session. That way all 5 members can attend, can participate, and the community can, and stakeholders can participate a little bit easier. So those are some of the things also that we can talk about next week and kind of figure out what's going to be the best way to make sure that we're accommodating all of the needs and still falling within the Brown Act without making it so overburdensome with all of the extra requirements.
That'd be brilliant. That'd be brilliant, Amy. I mean, we need guidance like that, because we're going with sort of what, but if there are other strategies to be compliant, but still have a, more of the board members in, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. So are we ready to wrap up this version 1 of our strategic planning discussion topics? Paul, great job, man.
Yes. Thank you both for everything.
It truly is, Paul.
I know. The rest of the staff, you may or may not be able to give comments, but obviously you guys know how to reach Delight and I. So. We truly want this to be, honestly, like, we're trying to bring sort of a corporate environment to OPA, but there may be things that may or may not work here. And we're going to obviously push back and say, no, we're going to try to make it work. But we certainly want input from every one of you guys. And, our partners outside of OPA, like EdTech, Amita and Patrick, you guys should also feel free to tell us, hey, here are some things that you should pay attention to. And on that note, Amita actually gave the presentation on strategic planning at that conference last week. So we have a great partner to help us through that as well. So, but yeah, absolutely. Anyone, I know there are some parents and staff, of course, please, we are eager to hear what ideas you have.
Can I just add one thing too, that I hope, I think it's baked into the plan perfectly. But I just think that I've been through this process before at different educational institutions, and I've seen it be very effective when you base everything we do around the principles of design thinking. where we make sure we keep a focus on who we serve, and that all the decisions and choices we're making don't lose that focus. Because that can easily happen too as we collect, information from different, angles. So just one other thought. And I think you, like I said, you have it baked in, but I just wanted to share that as one other idea.
That's a good way to be deliberate, Amy. So yeah, I think that's good guidance, and we'll make sure that we check on that on a regular basis.
Okay, so that leads us to items for presentation. Item A, the OPA financial report for January 2021. Ms. Parikh from EdTech, Ms. Palomino, Director of Fiscal Services. Yay, welcome.
Sure. Do I have access to share my screen?
Yeah, I just gave it to you. Oh,
Don't
I didn't
mute
click
me.
the second button. You're good.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, so today we're looking at the February financials for both schools. So for both schools overall, our forecast continues to look within budget. So relatively staying within budget. We're just seeing some reshuffling in terms of revenues and expenses for each site. So for SOC, we are projecting to end the year with about $1.1 million operating income for this school year. There were a few changes that netted to about $2,000 lower operating income than what we previously presented, but overall relatively stable. The adjustments that we noticed with the green bars, the first four ones are savings to our operating income. So we had about $11,000 in savings based on the trend in benefits related to retirement and some of the internet stipends as we're returning to more in-person instruction. We also see an increase of $9,000 in our revenue forecast related to the P1 ADA certification. Basically, we have an estimate of enrollment based on preliminary data that was submitted back in December, and then in February we get the official certification from the state, and the enrollment was one enrollment higher than what we had anticipated, and so that's additional revenue to our forecast. There's also $9,000 added related to special ed revenue. There's a new funding source this year through your special ed SELPA, which is a level 1 ERMS, and that's estimated at about $9,000 for SOC, so that's additional revenue towards the special ed program. There's also $5,000 in revenue that we went ahead and recognized related to tax credits from the CARES Act. So that's $5,000 for SOC that has been received at this point. The negative offsets to the operating income, we have about a $6,000 on insurance costs. So this was an additional invoice. We had thought originally that all of the insurance payments had been made at the start of the year, but there was actually one more payment to be made on the insurance policy. And so that was an increased cost from what we had adjusted for earlier in this year. There's also a $10,000 increase in miscellaneous operating costs. Essentially, we've put in a placeholder for, as we've been seeing some savings and increased revenues, we've put in a placeholder for future additional costs, particularly around equipment leases. And then we also increased, we also added the Fiscal Services Director position. So that was a $19,000 increase in cost for the rest of this year for SOC. For SV, similar story in terms of similar adjustments, but overall remaining within our forecast and within what we're anticipating to end the year compared to last month. So last month we presented a $735,000 operating income. We're now at a $736,000 operating income. So all in the same ballpark. The adjustments here, there was benefit savings about $9,000, so a little bit less than SOC, but still savings, both from retirement costs and internet stipends. The special ed revenue at SV, same source, about $6,000 from level 1 ERMS, and local revenue is about $5,000 related to the tax credits from the CARES Act. The insurance costs for SV, since a lot of these costs are split between the sites based on attendance, is a little bit lower to SV. So about a $3,000 increased cost there, and then a $16,000 increase in cost to add the Fiscal Services Director position this year. For the check and credit card registers, we only flagged 3 items this month. The first one is related to the insurance costs that I mentioned on the previous 2 slides, and then the other 2 were reviewed, but no material adjustments to the forecast from those. And then the last slide that I have is just to give you an update. And oops. There we go. So the last slide that I have is for COVID funding update. So previously we had mentioned that there was a few one-time funds kind of in the pipeline between the state and the federal stimulus. And so we've gotten additional information on those funds. And so I wanted to share that with you. Essentially what this graph is showing is a list of all of the COVID related funding. The LLM and ESSER 1 were approved in the first stimulus package with CARES and were budgeted to be spent for this year. So those are items that we've already recognized, anticipated the revenue and anticipated the expenses related to those programs. ESSER 2 is related to the December stimulus package passed by the federal government. And then ESSER 3 at the very bottom is from the most recent federal stimulus package that was passed just a few weeks ago. The AB SB 86, this is both one-time grants from the state that was just approved by the state legislature a few weeks ago. It was proposed by the governor months ago, but it was just approved by the legislature. And both of these are funds that we anticipate OPA to be able to tap into. The in-person instruction requires offering in-person instruction before May 15th to tap into. And since you're already offering that, we anticipate you to be able to tap into that. The expanded learning does have all schools will be receiving these funds, but there is a little bit more requirements around spending it. And so making sure that we're meeting all requirements on how we're spending those funds will be pivotal in terms of ensuring we keep those funds. Just to give you an idea of kind of on the graph we have here is how these funds are calculated. So for ESSER funding, it's based off your Title I funding, and for the state funding, it's based on LCFF. And so just kind of to give you an idea of dollar amounts that we're talking about here, ESSER 2 is in total between the 2 sites, we're estimating about $100,000, ESSER 3 being a little bit over $200,000. And then the in-person instruction and expanded learning between the 2 actually net to, so it's like 10% of your LCFF, which comes out to over $1 million in terms of additional revenue. So it'll be as important as we get into budget conversations for next year of how we're kind of strategically spending these funds, and kind of the columns we have on this graph is the years that you're allowed to spend the funds. So for example, ESSER 2 and 3, you have the next 3-4 years to spend it. And so as we start talking about, your strategic plan and kind of budgeting for the next few years, knowing that we have funds in place that we could kind of help with, learning loss mitigation or additional supports that might be needed, might be something that we want to kind of look into. And so definitely more to come on these one-time funds, but just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of these since they're pretty substantial and will likely impact budgeting for the coming year.
Amita, this is Raymond. So is there a way that we can get Paul and the Strategic Planning Committee just kind of an order of magnitude numbers, what needs to be spent, dollar amount, and when it needs to be spent, so that they can begin to overlay that on, some of their strategic planning? Because I don't want to get stuck in the last second, like, oh my gosh, you have to spend this money in the next 60 days, right? And where we're being silly about it, obviously we wouldn't, but you know what I mean?
I have all those figures, Raymond. So as part of that committee, I can share that as well as the timelines for when all of those funds need to be spent.
I knew you were going to say you already did it. Thank you. Good job.
Perfect. Are there any other questions on the financials?
All right. So we're good. That moves us to item. You good?
Hold on
You have
one
more,
second.
don't
I
you?
think Rosa was going to add a little bit at the end.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure nobody had questions for Amita. Just really quickly give you a quick update, what I've been up to, just working with David, with day-to-day stuff with Derek. He's out of the office this week. So I've been just trying to hold things down this week with, everyday kind of stuff. I processed my first AP batch, as you guys might have seen in a box, Jill and Raymond. So, thank you for being patient with me and getting that done. And on a bigger note, I'm kind of starting to work on a bigger project, which is the 1920 LCAP annual update. That's kind of my big project coming up. That's going to take some time. I reached out to Amita for some of her assistance, as well as Amy with just the financial stuff side of it. I'm also going to be working on the LCP for 2021, and then down the road, the 21-22 budget. So very exciting, a busy time coming up for us finance people. So it's going to be a busy time. So so thank you everybody that working with me, David, Jill, Amy, and Amita, and Patrick. And I attended my first finance committee as well last week. So that was exciting. And I attended the virtual charter school conference, a lot of good information, downloaded a lot of information too. So that was my first charter school conference. So good information. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, you'll be presenting there next year. Be ready.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Very excited to have you. Okay, so Chancellor's reports, Ms. Alvarado and Mr. Bridges.
Thank you. Let me share my screen.
And just so you know, you guys never disappoint. Your PowerPoints are always like on track. I love it. You set the bar, Mr. Bridges, Mrs. Alvarado.
Thank you. So we will get started on an update regarding the LCAP that you guys have heard during these presentations, our board meetings. We want to invite all of our stakeholders to join us. There's still room, there is still time for everyone to join us and help us develop OPA's school plan and also develop annual goals and strategic actions that are coming up for the next few years. And both Mr. Bridges and I, as well as the deans at both sites, are putting this together. Our next meeting will be April 1st. We will review the school site academic data along with the LCAP survey results, and we will also split into the prospective school sites to discuss possible actions and services that we need for the next few years. So please join us, both SOC and SV parents. We need your support. We want you to be part of this important decision and important conversations that are going to take place. Just to recap on what we have shared in the past, this is the timeline that we have created for the LCAP for this school year. So January is when we got started with the surveys to stakeholders. We analyzed those surveys. February, we presented to staff, to the school site council, as well as the stakeholder committee. March was our first meeting. April 1st will be our second meeting. May 5th will be the third LCAP committee meeting where we will review recommendations. And June is when we will be presenting this information to the board for their approval on June 10th. So we do need everyone to collaborate. Let's all work together. All you have to do, the only commitment right now is to work together and join us on April 1st and May 5th as well. So now an update about what's going on besides the LCAP that we have been working on. We just want to thank all of our parents, wonderful parents that are very thoughtful, very kind, and who are celebrating. Honor Society is putting together weekly celebrations and acknowledgements and bringing us lots of surprises and lots of great things on Wednesdays, every Wednesday for this month. We've had TK Burgers, Kona Ice, We had a barista, Krispy Kreme donuts. We had another parent who brought us some boxed lunches, and they just have been amazing. We feel the love, and we thank you all parents for all the support you guys have provided for us throughout the year. But this feels, our staff definitely feels special. Also, a little update about Read Across America. As you know, we have been celebrating the entire month about reading and encouraging reading for all of our students. But during the week of Read Across America, we've had different theme days, and these are just some of the pictures of our students who are hybrid, and also our staff who were supporting us by wearing their crazy hair, also their special hat or their favorite hat, as well as Dr. Seuss theme clothing and other items. And we've had a great time. It is nice to do a few of these things that help us feel that we are back to normal in some way, and that brings us together. You should see the smiles. Well, you can see their eyes smiling through those, behind those masks. You can see the students smiling through their eyes, as well as the teachers, all of our staff. Just if you feel the environment on campus, that it's alive, especially on these days when we come together and dress up.
All right, so about 2 weeks ago, both school sites had their open house days. It's the first time that we've ever had a virtual open house. Began the night with an admin presentation, about 20 minutes. And then we had 3 sessions where our families got to visit their classrooms. And what I took away from this event was being able to see whole families sitting in front of their cameras, laughing and playing along in the games and enjoying open house virtually. I know I could speak for Ms. Alvarado as well. As as administrators, we received numerous emails just thanking us for the event and how well it turned out and how excited they were to participate. So thank you to the teachers, the staff, the families that attended. It was truly a great night, and it really shows why we love being here at OPA. Next slide, Ms. Alvarado, please. As Ms. Alvarado talked about, we celebrated Read Across America, the love for reading. We had dress up days, crazy sock day, crazy hat day, college day, and then we had a special staff 80s theme dress day to surprise the kids and to kind of build some of the culture on our campus. So it was a fun day had by all. The kids just thought it was crazy dress day, not really 80s day. So we had to do some explaining to them, but it was a great time celebrating that week and the love for reading. Mrs. Merlette and I got to visit our kindergarten classrooms and read books to them. And it was the bright part of our week was getting into those classrooms and being able to participate in their learning. All right, the next slide. Again, Staff Appreciation Week. I want to thank the Honor Society at Saddleback Valley and all of the parents for showering our staff with gifts. What do they say? The quickest way to an educator's heart is through their stomachs. So we had bagels and brew, Panera boxes. We had 1 week where we had an Amazon wish list, and every day we would have boxes being delivered to the staff office, and we would put the goodies in the lounge in the refrigerator. So it was a great week. Honor Society provided and bought shirts for our staff, as you can see on top, with our names on the back so we know who each other is when we're walking down the hall. So thank you to Honor Society and all of our SV parents. And coming up, start of the 3rd trimester was last Friday. On Monday, SOC welcomed 69 new hybrid students and SV welcomed 60. Again, drop off and pickup procedures continue to run smoothly. Big part to the parents for following the procedures and protocols in place. It seems like every day we get quicker and quicker. Even on those rainy days, we had a couple of really tough days where we were standing out in the rain with wet shoes, but we were able to get through. And the students are adjusting to the hybrid learning schedule. We're super excited. for track to start up, and some other exciting news to come out shortly about how we're going to open some things up and be able to have kids on campus. So that's all I have. Thank you, OPA families.
Thank you.
So I think next we have the organizational report with Dr. Kernan. Correct?
Yes, pretty please.
All right.
The host requested I unmute. Now that looks like a happy dog right there.
I mean, I can hear you at least. I don't know if others can, but I can.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I asked Raymond to unmute, but didn't unmute myself. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about is open enrollment. We had 1,500 applications come in for next school year, so a huge number of applications. And yes, it was exactly 1,500, which seems a little odd, but it came out to be exactly 1,500. We had about 681 applications for Saddleback, 704 for South Orange County, and 115 independent study. We know that some of our families just really want to get into OPA, and so they apply for both campuses. And so it was about 874 unique applications. And a lot of families do apply for both of our school sites or even for all three programs, just wanting to get in and be part of OPA. But we're really excited about, even during COVID, the turnout that we had for open enrollment this year. And then at the last board meeting, it was requested that we show a little bit about our kind of historical data regarding our open enrollment and the lottery. We do each year open our enrollment up again later on in the year for what's called post lottery. So after we have the lottery with those initial applications, we open it up for post lottery. And so you can kind of see for the years prior to this year, it's showing the seats available with the pre-lottery and post-lottery. So that's why it's a little bit higher in the previous years. But we've actually been getting daily emails since we closed open enrollment for people who are still trying to apply. So I think that our post-lottery numbers will likely be even possibly higher than they have been in previous years. But you can see also our applications versus our total seats available. And so if you're looking for our upcoming school year, we definitely, in those lower grades, like in kindergarten, we got 422 applications, but we only have 89 available seats for our kindergarten classes. And so that does create a rather large wait list each year. And we definitely, anytime that anyone leaves, we move families up immediately on the wait list and try to get as many students in as we possibly can. We want to, we would love to have enough room to take even more families, but we are constricted by space on each one of our campuses. And so that's what determines those total available seats. And in a few grade levels, we have kind of a bubble going through. And so that those bubbles can sometimes create extra spaces. So if you look at 5th grade for next year, we do have quite a lot more available seats. And that's because we actually have an extra 5th grade class. We don't have enough, or we have too many current students to only have 5 classes. And so we had to open up an additional class. And so that creates those extra available seats between our 2 campuses. But we do have, but we will again this year have a pretty large wait list. And this isn't even including those post-lottery people or families who are who apply after we run the lottery. So as Amita talked about a little bit earlier, we are getting some new one-time funding. And 2 of those funding sources, the state just received or just let us know what our preliminary allocations are going to be. So the exact allocations that we should be receiving. So the first one is for in-person learning. And this is really to support us opening in person. And since we are already in person, since we already open for in-person learning, we meet the criteria for this grant, and we can use it for any type of expenses necessary for our schools to be open safely. And so for Saddleback Valley, we'll be receiving about $180,000, and for South Orange County, we'll be receiving about $220,000. For expanded learning opportunities, this grant is meant to fund expanding learning opportunities for those students who may be falling behind. The state is really pushing for increases in instructional minutes through programs like summer school or after school programs, intervention programs. And so for this grant, Saddleback Valley, their preliminary allocation would be about $380,000. And then South Orange County is about $464,000. So if you add all of those up, and these funds need to be, these 2 funding sources need to be used by August 2022. So we have a little over a year to spend these 2 grants. And our total funding would be about $1.244 million. So it is quite a bit of money that we are getting in that one-time funding from the state to fund both in-person instruction and expanded learning opportunities. So in looking at that and the fact that really the state wants schools to look at kind of getting some of those instructional minutes back for students who are falling behind. We are looking at creating a 4-week summer program, calling it Full Steam Ahead, for students who need some extra support so that they can really master the standards. We're going to, because we know we're still at about 50-50 as far as hybrid students and virtual students. So we want to be able to provide both on-campus and virtual learning opportunities. And our tentative dates for the program would run concurrent with our ESY, or extended school year program, for our Scholar Academy students. And so that would be from June 28th to July 22nd. So in addition to that, to the math and ELA intervention and support that students would receive, we're also working with the Boys and Girls Club to provide some additional enrichment and physical activity opportunities for students who are on campus doing the summer program. So we want to really provide a lot of not just summer school where students are just getting a bunch of remediation for math and ELA. We want to make it fun and engaging and really get the students motivated to want to be there, get them excited about coming every day and really excited about learning. Because the state is really looking at this money to be targeted for those students who need those extra learning opportunities, we're initially looking at inviting students sort of based on their ELA and math academic progress. And then if we have additional space in the program, then we would open it up to additional Opus students. And we're looking at a variety of different curriculum to use in the program. Orange County Department of Education has created summer expanded learning lessons that, that school districts can use. We also have our iReady program, and we also want to make it really engaging for our students. So we're looking at using the Amplify hands-on science lessons, a lot of them that we didn't get to put in place during the school year this year because we weren't in person for some of the school year. So adding those in. And we are going to be sending out an initial interest survey to families soon, just to gauge how many families might be interested in having their students participate in this program. We're also very excited that we are going to be we're working with the Anti-Defamation League, and we're looking at, and later on at the end of April and beginning of May, we're going to be providing some anti-bias training for our staff. This was something that really jumped out in our LCAP survey, something that the staff really thought that we needed to focus on. Our demographics at both of our schools are really expanding. We're becoming much more diverse educational organization. So we want to make sure that our schools and our classrooms are a really welcoming environment for all of our students and families. And so, so we're going to have that staff training coming up later on this year. And our schools are also looking to implement the No Place for Hate program at our schools next year. And so this is a program, it's in a lot of our surrounding schools and districts. It's a great program. It's completely student-led. And it really just makes sure that all of our students are providing a welcoming environment for all students, and that they understand how to deal with bullying and how to really be an upstander, and really create different activities that promote cultural awareness and promote anti-bias and really make our schools, we want our schools to be incredible places for all of our students. So we're really excited to be partnering with them to provide these two programs. And then we've always been really dedicated to making sure that our students and our staff are safe on campus during class. And we're also expanding some enrichment opportunities on campus during the third trimester. And so because of that, we've already started offering free voluntary weekly COVID testing at each site for our staff members, but we're going to be expanding that starting next week to include any students that want to be tested. So parents will be receiving information tomorrow to sign their students up to receive a COVID test. Families will need to bring their students to campus. We'll have the COVID testing on a different day during the week at each campus, but we want to be able to provide that service for our families. And then any students who are participating in extracurricular activities on campus, we have our cross country starting after spring break, and we're hoping to have some more in-person opportunities as well starting after spring break. And so we're going to be offering that testing at each site for those students who are participating in those activities. And then just some kind of upcoming things that we have going on at each site. We still have our social studies pilots that are underway at each site. And the teachers have been really excited about the new curriculum. It's been going really well, and they're super excited to use the curriculum and looking forward to adopting a new curriculum for next year. Also, second trimester report cards are going to be available in Aries tomorrow. Probably not until later tomorrow afternoon, but I will be sending out instructions to parents on how to view those in my message tomorrow. Also, students are taking their have taken their iReady math and ELA diagnostic tests. And so teachers have really liked that program and being able to use that to determine if students are falling behind and where students might need any extra support. And then, like our chancellor said, our LCAP committees are meeting and we still need volunteers. So if you want to volunteer for the LCAP committee and really get to help shape those decisions about our school goals and our actions, it's a great way to volunteer for that. And then just want to remind everybody that spring break is coming up on April 5th through 9th. And then some new safety guidance came out recently, changing the distance for social distancing in the classroom from 6 feet to 3 feet. One kind of caveat along with this social distancing, however, is that right now, as long as students are 6 feet apart in the classroom, if we have any close contact or if we have any positive cases in the classroom, the students are far enough apart that they aren't considered close contact for transmitting the disease. However, if students are only 3 feet apart, anytime we have an active positive case in the classroom, then we will have to quarantine a large number of students, any students that come within 3 feet of that student who or staff member who is positive. So decreasing the distance does allow us to add more students into the classrooms, but it also does come with the possible side effects of having to quarantine a lot of students anytime we have a positive case in the classroom. But we will be examining possible options to increase in-person instruction, as well as gaining feedback from our families and our teachers and our staff about how we can possibly try to increase some of that in-person instruction. And we've already been looking at that as far as adding more enrichment opportunities on campus, but we do want to continue to look at ways that we can expand that in-person time that students have on campus. However, we do again have some barriers to that, just related to staffing, because unlike a lot of our surrounding districts, we are pretty evenly split between the number of students who are hybrid and the number of students who are virtual. We're basically at about a 50-50 split. SOC is actually more virtual than hybrid. And so that kind of creates some staffing issues, because we still have to provide instruction to the students who are virtual. And if the students who are hybrid are on campus all day long, then we don't have the staffing to be able to teach the virtual students as well during that day, unless we live stream. And there have been a lot of, there's been quite a bit of negative feedback regarding live streaming, because those students who are virtual really don't get much attention from the teacher or ability to communicate or collaborate in small groups, because they're kind of basically off to the side, just watching the classroom. So another issue that we would have is if we did try to not have to live stream, we would have to change students' schedules, because we would have to flip students into other teachers' classes. And I know in our recent flip during the third trimester, adding more students to hybrid, one of the biggest concerns that parents had was making sure that their students didn't change their teachers. And so I think that, that would be a trade-off that we might have to have, is for the last, 2 months of school, if we did decide to try to go back to 100% in person, a lot of our students would have to be switched to another teacher in order to accommodate that type of move. But all of this kind of just came out over the last week or so. And so we've been looking at ways that we could, kind of make that work. And then, the positives and negatives, but we will also be reaching out to families to get their input as well. Probably something will go out tomorrow. So that is pretty much it. Does anyone from the board have any questions?
This is Denelli. I have a question about what are the surrounding, like our neighbors' schools, Saddleback and CUSD doing? Are they going back to 100% schooling?
So
Or?
Saddleback Valley just put something out today saying that they are going to work towards trying to go back 100%, I believe on April 19th. Capo has not put anything out yet, and Irvine has stated that they're not changing their instructional models at all for the remainder of this school year. So it's pretty split. And you know, as far as kind of throughout Orange County, there's everybody's kind of doing something different. Some schools have just realized that logistically to change so much with just a few months of school is going to be too difficult. And are kind of choosing to stick with the models that they have going now. And then, you know, like Saddleback, some are choosing to try to modify things and go towards more of a longer day schedule.
So at what point are we going to be communicating what our decisions are? Like do we have a timeline or a time frame that we're thinking would be reasonable?
So we're going to first try to get some parent feedback. Like I said, these guidelines just came out this week. So we'll try to get parent feedback just to see, especially around if we have to change. I think the biggest obstacle is the fact that we would have to change 50% of our students to new teachers, just because of that 50-50 split that most other districts don't have. And so I think getting more information, getting more data about that, we're going to try to get that as soon as possible. And then we would likely have an answer probably by the time I came back from spring break.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can I just say thank you for giving us more information and the breakdown of the lottery numbers. I know that added more to your plate with that request that I made. But I
Hadley
do think
was wonderful in putting most of that together. So I have to give a shout out to Hadley for that.
Well, thank you so much. And I really think it's critical not only to understand it from year to year, but also in doing our strategic planning to consider our supply and demand. So I don't think it was time wasted, and thank you.
No problem.
So I absolutely love that you guys are looking at the summer school and really putting those programs together. Do you have a sense if those are going to be full day or half day yet, or if you're going to have an option for students that might be doing okay, but might not necessarily meet that threshold of intervention necessary? Do you kind of have some ideas about those things?
So we're probably looking, because you know, we're looking at having a virtual option and an on-campus option, and because we know in summer school usually is a shorter day because, you know, kids want to be out and be kids during the summer. So we're looking at probably the virtual option being a shorter time frame. Kids are kind of zoomed out. So we're looking at, for virtual, it being about 2 hours a day of the academic intervention. And then for the on-campus students, about 2 hours a day of the academic intervention, and then 2 hours of more enrichment and physical, sports and things like that. With also maybe having an option if parents wanted to work with the Boys and Girls Club to extend that day to even be a little bit longer than that. So possibly, 2 hours of academics, 2 hours of the enrichment that would be part of our program, and then maybe extending on another 2 hours with the Boys and Girls Club from there, because we know we have parents who are looking for different options for their students in the summer. We do have a lot of staff interest in doing the program this year. That was our first barrier, was just making sure that we had the staff, because we really want to make sure that we're using our OPA teachers to make sure that we're providing really good academic instruction over the summer. We had much more staff interest than I had thought we would have. And with the extra extended learning grant that we're getting from the state, we're hoping to be able to open it up to where we can hit all of those students that need it, but also be able to offer some options, like you said, for other families to be able to have their students attend as well. We just want to make sure that we're first targeting those students who really need it the most. But we think that we're going to still be able to open up some availability for other students as well. And so, you know, we'll be putting out that interest survey and probably right after spring break, just to kind of gauge how many families would be interested in it. And then we can look at staffing. But like I said, with the new funding, it looks like that we will be able to, and the fact that everybody wants to do it, we will be able to offer quite a few options.
My only other question, kind of in the same line of thinking, is OPA used to have Excellence Academy. And I know that was popular for a lot of families because they really appreciated that kind of one-on-one tutoring either before school or after to help their kids. Is that another avenue that's being pursued because you guys already kind of had the infrastructure in place?
Yeah, so that is something that we are looking at, both expanding our intervention opportunities within the school day, and then also looking at some opportunities after school as well. It may be a little different kind of setup because Excellence Academy really targeted only a small group of students. And we want to provide opportunities that are available for a wider range of students who need it. But that we are with that. So that extended learning grant, we are able to use through August of 2022. And so that can cover this year's summer school as well as programs for extended learning and increased instructional minutes during the school year next year.
Thank you.
Okay. So that leads us to operations update, Mr. Barley.
Good evening, everybody. Dr. Kernan, I think you're going to help me be proficient by running the very few slides that I have tonight.
I am. Hold on, let me open yours really quick and share my screen again.
First part, we're going to talk about the executive director search timeline on the next slide. And just this is an update of the slide that you've seen at several of the meetings, just updating that we've continued to work through the process. And on the coming, so we've got the dates and everything has gone very well. I've been super happy with everyone helping. If we go to the next slide, it's really a time to thank everybody for the work that's been done to date. It was a very process with integrity, we believe. It was process focused. I wanted to give shout out to board members who've been involved, parents and guardians. Everybody volunteered. So many people volunteered to be a part of it. We couldn't select everybody who volunteered. Unfortunately, there were so many who did. Certificated staff, teachers, classified staff, administrators, everybody stepped up to make it a really great process. So I couldn't be more proud of everyone and thank everyone. Wanted to special shout out to Eva Lopanisic in our HR department, our HR manager. Her organization and coordination has been phenomenal, and she really added to the process as well. And then obviously we want to thank the applicants. We had a huge pool of applicants for the position, and that shows that people are interested in working for OPA. So I think it's really great that the community values OPA and wants to be here. Next slide. Fiscal Services, you met Rosa Palomino. So she's making great progress in her fourth week now. So we're thrilled to have her on board. I wanted to highlight one contract that was renegotiated. We had at each school enforced 2 60-month legacy contracts that have been enforced for a long time, okay? And we've been able to, it was put on hold with the last March when with COVID, and we've just now renegotiated the contract. We're in a great partnership with Centus to meet our needs. for SV and SOC. It's right-sized the contract. It's 18-month, no more auto renewal. And really, they want to be a partner with us now. So again, that was kind of, I think, the last legacy contract that needed to be resolved, and working with the right people there, we've been able to do that. Next slide, please. Update on our staffing and next steps. So intent to returns we received from all employees. Their intent to return to our campuses and be involved, obviously, work for OPA in the next school year. The summatives, observation reviews have almost been completed. Actually, there's just a handful left. Notice of reasonable assurance combined with the employment agreements, it's an addendum this year, will be worked on and sent out next week. And that's a new approach. We've gotten it approved, obviously, our drafts by employment lawyer that we work with. And so we're going to get all those out prior to spring break, hopefully get most of them back prior to spring break, and they'll all be due the day after spring break. So very excited about some process improvements there and streamlining the process for this year. And the next slide, just want to give a quick update of something that had been on our list for a long time. It's the SV campus beautification. We had many trees that had been neglected for years. We had the City of Lake Forest meeting with me, as well as we worked with SoCal Edison and neighbors to take trees that are growing into power lines and just really overgrown nuisance trees, dead trees, really focused on beautifying that campus. So you can see that was a big effort. We did it last year at SOC, last school year at SOC. So trying to improve where we spend our time, right, for our families and staff. And that's it. Any questions for me today?
I'd just like to give you a big shout out, David, for leading the executive director recruitment. It's been a great process, and I really, I'm so thankful that we've been able to involve so many people and have it be a very professional process so that we can select the best candidate. So I just want to thank you as leading that from the administrative team.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. That leads us to items for action. Item B, approve 2021 second interim report for Opus Saddleback Valley. Each charter school shall annually prepare and submit interim reports to its chartering authority and the county superintendent of schools, or only to the county of superintendent if the county board of education is the chartering authority. The second interim financial report shall reflect changes to the budget through January 31, Ed Code 47604.33A3 and 4. Is somebody going to present on this?
I can present on it, but Rosa, you're used to filing these. Do you want to comment on the purpose of the second interim reports? You're muted.
There we go. It's just giving you the actuals compared to your budgets between July through January 31st. And it's just kind of giving you just kind of where we were, where we're heading, and where we think we're going to finish the year, just a overall financial view of the schools and where we're at financially, in short. And there, yeah.
Okay. So it is recommended that the board of directors approve. Are we going to see this thing? Are you going to put it up on the screen so everybody can see it? I mean, obviously it's in the packet.
I can put it up. Let me just share my screen.
Okay.
Scroll through to it. Sorry about the scrolling. Just close your eyes.
I don't see any scrolling.
Okay. I'll actually start with Saddleback Valley since that one is the first one. It's very small, but as you, so basically it talks about our preliminary budget is in the first column. our first interim, which we have already submitted, and then our actuals through the end of January, and then our second interim budget. So if you see for, and then it's separated out into our unrestricted, actuals, and restricted. Some of our funds have to be spent on very specific things. And so those are our restricted funds. They're restricted to spending on. So if you look here for special education, those funds can only be spent on special education students. And then you can see our total actuals. And so down at the bottom, you can see all of our revenue, and we are trending pretty much very accurately to where we were in our preliminary budget, as well as our first interims. And then the second part would be our expenditures. There is this little red flag here for workers' compensation, and I believe that's because we are waiting to get back some money for our workers' compensation. So, so that's why that's flagged there as being that we have spent over the budgeted amount, but we are planning to get that shored up at the end of the year because we did decrease our staffing this year compared to what it was staffed at the beginning of the year. So then again, you can see our total expenditures. And then this last column is just the percentage that we've actually spent. And then on this last page, then you can see basically our net position where we are. And we do, again, we have a very strong operating income and a very strong reserve at Opus. So so we are doing very well as far as tracking towards our budget and our overall position and our overall reserves. So then I think SOC is, and these tables are basically just tables showing kind of the backup for all of that data. Actually, I think, oh no, SOC should be below. And then these are all, again, all of our assumptions, how many teachers we have, how many other staff that we have, things like that. So for Saddleback Valley, same thing. If you look, we actually have to use two separate forms because our auditors or our authorizing agencies require they require these to be in two separate forms. So that's why they look a little bit different. But again, you'll see our total revenue from our first interim, our actuals, and then our second interim budget, and they are very similar. So we had our first interim was about 7.9, and again, our second interim is 7.9. So we are trending as far as what we budgeted in the first interim. Then you can see our expenditures. Whoops, I think I went past it. So then again, here's our total expenditures. Again, tracking very close to what we had budgeted in our first interim. And then again, our net decrease or increase. And you can see that, again, we are in a very strong cash position with a very strong operating income at both sites. So any questions about that?
Looks good.
All right.
Okay. So it is recommended that the Board of Directors approve action item B. So may I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve action item B.
Thank you, Paul. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So we're going to do a roll call vote. So Danelli?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Amy Smith?
Aye.
And Delight?
Aye.
And Jackson's aye, so that motion carries unanimously. Item C, second interim report for SOC. So each charter school annually prepares and submits interim reports to its chartering authority and the county superintendent of school, or only to the county superintendent if the county board of education is the chartering authority. Second interim financial report shall reflect changes to the budget through January 31, Ed Code 47604.33A3 and 4. It is recommended that the board of directors approve action item C. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve action item C.
Thanks, Danelli. May I have a second?
Second.
Second. Oh.
Okay. Thank you,
I
Paul.
already presented on this, so.
You did. Roll call vote. So Danelli,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Amy Smith,
Aye.
Bill Light,
Aye.
and Raymond says aye as well. This motion carries unanimously. Item D, approve charters for OPA Board of Directors Standing Committee. Charters for OPA's 4 standing board committees are submitted for approval. So is anybody going to present on this?
Present on this item. Last regular board meeting, the board approved resolutions to develop 4 standing committees. And at that time, there were draft charges for charters that each committee member and staff assigned to the board we're going to look at and refine. What the charters are really the duties and the responsibilities for each standing board, and we have 4 of them, and they were reviewed last month, refined this month, and based on the revisions that our committees provided input, and these are the finalized version of the charters that will go along with the resolutions, and they're the parameters of what the each of our standing committees will do and produce in the course of their committee meetings and the recommendations to the full board.
All righty. We've all spent a fair amount of time reviewing and revising these for the past couple of months, I think. So it is recommended the board of directors approve action item D. May I have a motion, pretty please?
I make a motion to approve action item D.
Thank you, Delight. May I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Danelli. Okay, roll call vote. Danelli,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Delight,
Aye.
and Raymond, aye. So this motion passes unanimously. Brings us to action item E, approve a 1-year FSMC contract for school year 2021-22 between Revolution Foods and Oxford Preparatory Academy. Due to the need to secure contracts without delay, SFAs and SFSP sponsors with SFMC contracts expiring in school year 2020 and 2021 may, pursuant to 2 Code of Federal Regulations 200.32F2, use the emergency non-competitive proposal procurement method to negotiate a new 1-year FSMC contract for school year 2021-22 to ensure program integrity moving forward. Contracts resulting from such non-competitive proposals may not exercise renewal options. 2202 sub A of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, also known as the Act, PL 116 through 127. All righty.
I'd be happy to present on this item, and
Yay.
maybe let's demystify the alphabet soup. An FSMC contract is a food services management contract, which is what we currently approved between Revolutionary Foods, our service and server provider for last year and this year. It's been a year of waivers, and amongst those waivers is the ability to extend an emergency non-competitive procurement method for the next year. We don't have to go out to bid, but it's just for this year and only this year. We have been satisfied with the the service and the price between Revolutionary Foods and Oxford Preparatory Academy, and it's recommended that again we renew for one more year. The competitive bidding proposal for the year after, because this will not roll over again, should begin in January of 2022. So this is a one-time non-competitive bid process. And you'll notice that the amount of the contract should not exceed, I think it's about $133,000. It's more than last year. Last year for this year for 21-22, it's the price of the contract should not exceed $104,000. The increase has to do with a slight increase in the charge of meals, servers, and the mere fact that we're going to be anticipating and forecasting providing many more meals next year. It's estimated over 29,000 meals will be served by OPA using Revolutionary Foods. And looking at the mathematics, that's about right. So we'll be doubling the number of meals that we will be serving next year if we're open to in-person instruction.
All right. What kind of questions do you have about that, board mates?
I have a few.
All righty.
So first is
Do we need to have a motion before for discussion to consider this? So let's put it on the floor.
For her to ask questions? Sure. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, let's put it on the floor.
Great. So Janelle, would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion for discussion of.
I'll make a motion for sure. And who'd like to second that motion?
Second.
Paul, is that you?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so we got a motion into second. Let's get it on.
Okay, so I have just a couple of things. On section 4, item B, number 13. I don't know if you can pull it up or what, but there's a section there that asks for a committee to kind of look at the menu items, students, parents, administrators. I think it's section 4.
You have a page number on it that I can speak to it?
No, I just have a section 4.
So,
and it's item 13.
I'm looking at it, but I can speak to what that, there it is, SFA. And we're this, yeah, SFA. So SFA is a school food authority, which is us. And we'll establish and maintain an advisory board composed of parents, teachers, and students to assist with menu planning. That is to be folded in with safety and wellness with the committee we already have. We are going to be holding a meeting to take a look at, it's actually our year for triennial wellness assessment. So we will be looking at menu selection as part of some other criteria that needs to happen, and how well we're living into our nutrition and our wellness policies. And if we're going to make changes, what that implementation plan is going to look like. So our chancellors are preparing that meeting, and it happens at the annual wellness meeting, which is in the spring. And we are shortly going to embark on that, include those duties as part of the meeting.
Because what I'd like, in my ideal world, we'd be able to see what we're able to offer our students in terms of children who maybe don't get breakfast in the morning, and we have an option for that. And if there's some, more advanced nutritional options for the ones that are existing, and what that looks like and what students would like to see. I'm mostly, very concerned about the students who don't have the meals, and making sure that we give them enough nutrition and options, and that we're feeding them if they need breakfast, and if they need dinners, that we have that available as well. I'm not quite sure what that is, but if there's some kind of recommendations that you guys could look into and give us on that, that would be really appreciated.
Yeah, during that meeting, we could provide that host or that continuum of food service options that schools have. They do include breakfast and some other options as well. And looking at full meal options, providing at least with this vendor, and we can, again, look at others down the line. We can look at the menu that we have, as well as all the other options that are available and all the other kinds of meals and snacks that a school can offer its students. And again, the specifications for what those are, what the ingredients must be, the quantities, they're all, again, very, very, it's a lot of detail, but we can begin to explore all those options at the upcoming Wellness Committee meeting.
I'd like to see some, our options for also upgrading the food, if there's, ways that we could just give a little bit more, if there's, or see what Revolution Foods could give us optimally, like what's the best they can offer us, and let's see what that looks like. I'd love to see that.
Janelle, are you talking about like food quality? Is the food not good? What does the site administration say about it? Do they like the food? The food good?
I don't know what the site administration thinks.
Oh,
there's one.
I have eaten it many times.
Me too.
Okay.
But again, it needs to be attractive for the kids. It's very fresh. They don't use additives. So food has to be, again, the bulk ordering has been a little challenging for this year. But again, it's we need to order what kids are going to eat. And
but it does have to meet a lot of health and nutrition requirements. And so there are quite a lot of guidelines and requirements that we have to follow. So sometimes it can't always be the the food that kids might pick themselves to eat, just because we do have to follow those health and nutrition requirements.
No, absolutely, and I agree. I think that we need to give them the best nutritious food that they can. But if there's any way to just look at our options for upgrading, I'd really like to know that.
Yep, we can provide full menu options, and also the way in which meals can be modified, as well as additional meals that we're not serving. So that's something for the committee to take a look at and make a recommendation about.
Yeah, and if there's any financial implications for upgrading, I'd like to know that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if there's ever any taste testing, I would like to know that as well. We have like a burrito shootout or something, like bring your best burrito over here.
Tasting the food is part of the procurement process. So yes.
You know what? And I have a couple of typos as well. In the food services section J, there's the surplus. So I looked it up just to make sure I wasn't missing something. So doesn't mean anything but surplus. It's missing an L. And then the T is missing in section 14. See right underneath there's a T missing. So just two little things I noticed.
The first one, surplus, was in section, which one? I'm sorry.
Section J, subcontract.
Section J, that's right. All right. Look at this. We'll get this corrected. Thank you for your fine eye.
And so this ends when, Jill?
This begins the 1st of June 2021, and it will end on, it begins on July 1st, and it will end on 2021, and it will end on June 30th, 2022.
And didn't we just approve one of these that ends in June?
Yes. This would be the renewal, aka an extension. But for the year after, you'll start to look at a competitive bidding process in January 22 for the following year.
And why are we doing that now? Like the non-competitive piece of it. If we have a competitive option, why are we not doing that? Is it because we lack of bidders kind of thing?
We've had lack of bidders in the past.
Okay.
Again, it's a flexibility among other flexibilities that we've been offered by the California Department of Education, realizing that in terms of time and energy and what school districts and schools are having to attend to, kind of taking the, I think, the burden out of some additional work and paperwork. So it is an option. It's a flexibility for this year only. There's been a lot of flexibilities again for schools, whether they be USDA waivers or CDE around nutritional policies, and they've been very helpful.
Okay. And this is am I understanding this correctly? This is like a 30% increase over the previous year?
The difference would be, I can get my calculator out, but the difference would be between 104,000 ratcheting up to about 133,000. So you are
So in round
correct.
numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so again, it has to do with number of anticipated meals that are going to be served. And also going back to in-person instruction, we're going to need servers every day if we're going to serve meals 5 days a week.
Okay. Is there so if we're budgeting for servers and if we end up not using them, do we pay anyway?
No, you pay for what you order.
Okay.
And if we need to say, we probably need fewer servers or maybe not one on this campus, Revolution Foods has been really flexible with us. They've been a good partner.
Got it. So end of the year, it could be less if we do less. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, you're not tied into that number. That's usually kind of the maximum amount estimated. It's not to exceed that amount.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion in a second. We'll do
Wait, one more question, Joe.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So when your committee meets, when can we expect that you'll have some recommendations? Like what's the time frame on that?
Well, I guess it would be probably, within the next month. And again, that would be recommended
in the next in the next month to month and a half, depending on the different school sites have their safety committees at different times, but we're trying to get it in. I think SOC has a safety committee tomorrow, but then they have one next month. It was a little too soon to get it in for tomorrow, so we're going to be having it in SOC's April committee meeting, and I believe SV's April committee meeting as well.
So you can, based on those recommendations, if you need to, I think, revise the contract or for the 21-22 year, or if you think about you want to make those revisions for 22-23, we can recommend, we can help discuss that and figure out, if and when you want to make those shifts.
Well, and the goal isn't to not sign the contract, right? We want to sign the contract, and if we can make an amendment to it, I think that would be ideal.
Yeah.
So we can get everything in place first.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Seeing as we have no questions, we'll do a roll call vote. So Danelli?
Aye.
And Paul?
Aye.
And Amy?
Aye.
And Delight?
Aye.
And Raymond, aye. This motion carries unanimously. Okay, item number F, approve the purchase of 50 Samsung Chromebooks. Due to distance learning, all students in grades TK through 8 require devices to participate in instructional activities. OPA currently has many Chromebooks that were purchased in 2016 or even earlier, which can no longer be updated to run instructional and assessment programs. As a part of our one-to-one device initiative, OPA needs 50 more Chromebooks to replace older devices and ensure all students have access to technology for the remainder of the 2021 school year. The 50 Samsung Chromebook 4s and Google Chrome licenses will cost $14,117.34. It is recommended that the board approve agenda item F. Anybody want to present on this?
Yep. So we have been continuing to replace our old Chromebooks. And we have, due to the fact that the state has yet to waive our CASP testing, it looks like we will in some form have to do the CASP testing, which requires our students to use a secure browser. And that secure browser will only go on Chromebooks that are able to be updated. And so we need to purchase some more Chromebooks to replace some of those Chromebooks that are no longer able to update. It's kind of been an ongoing thing. We've been trying to not over order, but the fact that with the testing, a lot of our students have been using their personal devices at home, and some parents don't want to put our management software on their own personal devices, but our management software has to be on in order to use the secure browser. So, so we need those computers just to make sure that everyone's going to be able to get on that in 3 through 8th is going to be able to get on that assessment system, but also just to make sure that we're utilizing Chromebooks that can get on all of those different systems that we need them to get on.
Okay. All righty then. So it is recommended the board approve action agenda item F. May I have a motion?
Oh, and just one more thing, this just for Denelli, because I figure she's going to ask. This
She is.
already has been budgeted for. So we're actually just using some of our already budgeted non-capitalized equipment. So this isn't going to add anything to our budget. I just had to throw it in for you, Denelli.
Some other questions. So I'm excited to talk about this. So. Okay, so
Okay,
should
cool.
I make a motion to discuss it?
Pretty please.
Or approve?
Pretty please.
I make a motion to approve, but I want to discuss it. I have some questions.
Of course, we're gonna definitely make that happen. May I have a second, pretty please?
Second.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, let's have a conversation.
So I just had a question of which site was going to receive these Chromebooks.
So these Chromebooks would be split between the two between the two sites. We need to do some replacement Chromebooks at both of our campuses.
And then do you guys? So how do you have a track? Is this in a database of how many, who has what, and how does that work?
So Joel, our IT coordinator, does have a database showing basically all of our OPA owned Chromebooks, how old they are, basically then he can track which ones aren't going to be able to update and which ones can still hold all of the updates. And then on that tracking, it also shows which students have those devices checked out to them. So he's really, him and Daniel, our other IT person, have really worked hard to make sure that we have an accurate inventory, especially because we've been replacing and and getting rid of some of those older Chromebooks, so that we know exactly how old all of our Chromebooks are and when we'll need to replace them. They're also working right now on creating a technology plan for the next 3 years with all of those different refresh cycles. We got kind of blindsided this year with COVID, because we used to be 1-to-1 just 3 through 8th, and we had to switch to being K or TK through 8th 1-to-1. And so we're just going to continue with that 1-to-1 for all students. And so we need a really a good 3-year refresh plan so that we can make sure that we're budgeting for making sure that our Chromebooks don't become 6 or 7 years old before we replace them for our students.
Yeah.
Okay. We're also looking at ways that we can get the cost for our Chromebooks reimbursed through E-rate. So Joel's working on that as well, because there was a big chunk of money that was allotted by the federal government for E-rate to be able to reimburse for Chromebooks. So we're hoping that a lot of all of this cost can be reimbursed. It's just that we don't know whether it will be yet. So we have to add it into the budget.
So when we talk about some of the grants and things that we're getting from the government, is there opportunity there to get Chromebooks for kids who are maybe don't have quite the equipment at home, but they're learning remotely? Is that?
Yeah, so all of our, no matter, all of our students are afforded the opportunity to have an OPA purchased Chromebook. Some parents choose to use, to buy their kids their own Chromebook, but we make sure that no matter who the students are, that they do have that availability to be able to check out a Chromebook from OPA. And then for our students who might not have access to quality internet at home, because they can't afford it, we do work with those families to make sure that they have internet as well. And then also we're looking at E-rate to help cover some of that cost as well for those families that we need to help them with getting internet access as well. So we're looking at a variety of different ways that we can try to recoup some of the money that we're spending on these things through different revenue sources.
May I also add that a lot of the grants that are out there, oftentimes the priority has to do with the number of Title I students you might have. It depends on income requirements. So, being the community that we are, oftentimes we are not competitive or eligible for some of these other grants, but it doesn't mean we can't look at part of our development strategy to offset what we and really help us with the one-to-one initiative and the 3-year refresh.
Yeah, it would be great to get some new stuff in too. Then my other question is that database, is it every site has their own database of the computers, or is it a combined one for both sites?
He has it separated out by site.
Okay. And so again, based on this, is it evenly split between the two sites, or is it 60-40? What typically do you do when you refresh?
So our normal split is based on ADA of the two sites. And so we'll normally do a 55-45 split. 55 that's the split in number of students between the two sites. So 55% SOC and then 45% SV.
Okay. Great, thank you.
So I'm actually personally, I think this is non-negotiable. We should be very aggressive about upgrading Chromebooks, and if there's one thing we want to spend money on, it's this one. This is the future, right? And so, yeah, I think I'm all supportive. And if as you do your technology refresh plan, and as we do the current state assessment, we ought to see whether we ought to shorten the refresh cycle so that we'll be providing state of the art, right? This is actually quite visible for our school, and I think that's going to make it very exciting. So thank you.
Yeah, we're looking at the average life of a Chromebook being about 3 years, and so in the past we've kept Chromebooks we still have some Chromebooks that are 8 or 9 years old that we got rid of this year. So we're looking at going on to a 3-year refresh cycle so that we're able to make sure that they're running well, they're able to run any of the programs we need them to, and we're able to easily update them. So our goal is really to get to that 3-year refresh plan, and any strategy and development money that might come in to help that would be much appreciated.
And to take it a little further, we have to look at networking and capacity issues as well. That's the other piece of it. We can have a lot of new computers, but I think as some students and parents can attest, there are connectivity limitations, and we need to address that as well on our campuses.
Yeah, that's also part of our technology plan, is making sure that we're looking at the entire infrastructure, and then replacing any switches or anything that we need on the campuses as well. We just also replaced all of our access points at SOC and several at SV to make sure that because our internet connectivity was pretty bad at SOC. So Daniel and Joel replaced all of those just about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago to improve that. So we're constantly looking at ways that we can make sure that everyone's able to access everything, and that it's not we're running really well as far as our internet and student devices.
Yeah, I think as we go into this current state assessment, we really ought to make sure that, we really need to be cutting edge, right? I mean, again, in terms of strengthening our core. So any kind of requests you have, let's put that into the mix so that, we can make decisions based on that. That'll be my suggestion.
I know we're going on 10 o'clock, so I'll be quick with my question, but especially if we're going to start, refreshing more frequently, I think it's important that we have a clear process for how things are disposed of, especially if they're still functioning and that we're not being wasteful. So I don't know if that's existing or if something we need to look at, but what is happening to these items that we're retiring if they're still working? Are they just being recycled? Are they being donated or what?
We work, if they're non-functioning or really completely out of date, most of the ones that we got rid of were between 6 and 9 years old and not able to update or basically get on the internet anymore. And so we work with a company to e-waste those. If it is something that we are still able to use, and then we usually will try to keep those either for backups or to use for students if we have a student who forgot their Chromebook or something and they just need to get on quickly. But most of the ones that we're getting rid of, Joel works with a company to e-waste that material that just doesn't function anymore.
So what I hear you saying, Paul, is teaching our kids the IT skill of keeping their browser working well beyond its useful life isn't something you want to push forward on. All right.
We can.
We don't want to limp along anymore. We'd rather.
Got it. Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. So Danelli?
Aye.
Paul? Paul, I didn't hear you, buddy.
Aye.
Okay. Amy?
Aye.
Delight?
Aye.
And Raymond, aye. This motion carries unanimously. All right. Item G, approval of renewal of IXL student licenses for Opus Saddleback Valley. As part of SBAB 86, schools will receive funding for programs and curriculum that help bridge the learning gap created for some students due to the pandemic. IXL provides individualized support for students at their level to help fill knowledge gaps and increase learning. By purchasing IXL now, Opel will receive access through the end of 2020 to 2021 school year, and for the entire 21 to 22 school year. The program can also be used during the summer for students needing extra support. Yay. The cost for 1,000 licenses for students in grades 3 through 8 is $6,375. Anybody going to present on this and why agenda item H is for the same 1,000 licenses, more than $1,000 more? Perhaps that question is going to come up.
Agenda item H is for actually more licenses, I believe, or for a different, yeah, it's for 275 plus 325 versus, and sorry, that may have been a typo there should be two separate amounts. It should be 500 for SV, and then I believe, I'll do SV first. So it's 500 licenses for SV at $63.75. And we are purchasing IXL. It's something that we did have in the past. It's a good way for us to assess our students and provide some remediation. And it can also be used for expanded learning for our students. We're looking at using this. One of the reasons that we're doing this at the end of the year right now is because they're providing us a deal where they're actually, instead of doing it for just 1 year, they're going to give it to us as well to use for the rest of this year and for our summer program. So with these licenses, we'll be able to cover all of our students and then again, use it over the summertime. But it does provide the teachers with something that they can give the students that really hits the students at their exact level. And since we do have some students who have fallen behind a little bit during the pandemic, we really want to look at a lot of different programs that we can provide our students that will hit them exactly where they need that support, and that they can do both with their teacher's support, but also independently. And so IXL is also something that the teachers can monitor and support them in, but they can also have the students work on that during asynchronous independent time as well. And it still provides them that support that really is focused in the areas where they need it specifically. So again, it's 500 licenses for SV for the 6375. And then it's a different amount of licenses for SOC. It's a 600 student licenses for SOC.
Okay. So then may we have a motion for action item G?
Make
I
a
make the
motion.
All right.
Oh, go ahead, Dylan.
Second.
Can we also amend that to show the cost for the number of licenses is adjusted from 1,000 to per site, please? on there?
500 for.
500 to 600. Mhm.
Yeah.
So the motion is to approve action item G as amended for 500 licenses for Saddleback Valley. And right, did I hear that right, Danelli?
Yeah, but then, yes.
Okay,
It should- Thank
great.
you.
And the second? May I have a second, pretty please?
Second.
All right, Paul. And roll call, Danelli,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Delight,
Aye.
Raymond, I. Motion carries unanimously. Action item H. For all the same reasons, part of SBAB 86, schools will receive funding for programs and curriculum that help bridge the learning gap created for some students due to the pandemic. IXL provides individualized support for students at their level to help fill knowledge gaps and increase learning. By purchasing IXL now, Opel will receive access through the end of the 2021 school year and for the entire 21-22 school year. The program can also be used during the summer for students needing extra. The cost for 600 is the amended amount. 600 licenses for students in grade 3 through 8 is $7,513. May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve item H.
Thank you, Danelli. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, Danelli,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Delight.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All right. Raymond says aye. Okay. Item 11, it's recommended that the board adjourn the regular meeting of the Oxford Preparatory Board of Directors meeting on March 25th, 2021 after 10 o'clock. May I have a motion, pretty please?
I
I make a motion.
Paul, and a second?
I second the motion.
Danelli. Okay, Danelli says, Nelly's saying aye, is that right?
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Delight,
Aye.
and Raymond, aye. This motion carries unanimously. Meeting is adjourned at 10:07 p.m. Thank you all very much.